Fulcanelli's main point, the key to unraveling the mystery lies in an understanding of what he calls the phonetic law of the spoken Kabbalah, or the language of the birds. This punning, multilingual wordplay can be used to reveal unusual and, according to Fulcanelli, meaningful associations between ideas. What unsuspected marvels we should find if we knew how to dissect words, to strip them of their barks and liberate the spirit, the divine light which is within. Fulcanelli writes, he claims that in our day this is the natural language of the outsiders, the outlaws and heretics at the fringes of society, and a secret communication method used by the adepts of all of the mysteries. And now I'm going to depart from Fulcanelli for just a few seconds, and I'm going to read you a quote from St. John chapter 1, verse 1 of the King James Bible. St. John chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. There's more to language than most of you would ever even want to believe. This language of the birds was also called the green language of the Freemasons. Fulcanelli reminds us, who built the art Gothic of the cathedrals, ultimately the art cot, or the art of light, is derived from the language of the birds, which seems to be a sort of earth language taught by both Jesus and the ancients. It is also related to the Sufi text by Attar the chemist entitled The Conference of the Birds. In Détassé's French translation of this work, which Fulcanelli references, the conference of the title is translated as language. Détassé goes on to explain the complex linguist metaphor beneath the simple fable. And Fulcanelli uses the same method to decode the alchemical meaning of the cathedrals. Fulcanelli also claims that Rabelais, Gargantua, and Pantagruel is a novel in chant that is written in the secret language. You've heard me discuss this before on many, many broadcasts. The secret language, the lost word of Freemasonry.
Remember, I said we should see language as the stuff with which we work rather than matter. And that means creating a technology of the sayable, making the complete understanding of new puns a national priority on a par with weapons development. It means exploring the real implications of substituting Finnegan's Wake for the Constitution, this sort of thing. Because what we're doing, you see, is pulling the beard of the linear printheads who really believe all of this stuff, who really are lost in the labyrinth of the political errors of the last 500 years. In a way, this is sort of my vision of the millennium, that we will be resorbed into the Word. You know, the whole story begins in principio et verbum et verbo caro factum est. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh. The whole cosmic drama is the mystery of what it is for the Word to be made flesh. Language is seeking to birth itself into the domain of concrete existence. That's obviously what the Word made flesh means. And it seems to me that if the Word can be made flesh, this implies a reciprocity. It implies that the flesh can be made Word. And this brings us back to what I was talking about at the very beginning this evening, which is the curiously literary nature of reality. That it's much more like a novel by Thomas Pynchon than it is like an equation by Ilya Prigogine. And why is that? Is it because, in fact, the flesh is Word, and that understanding this is the real task of uncovering our spirituality? Somehow it's a riddle, it's a conundrum, it's a koan. If we could correctly understand this, if the world did not disappear immediately, at least it would roll around in the palm of your hand like a spinning marble, as the I Ching promises. It's something about the recognition of the primacy of the Word, that history is the process of the descent of the Word into concrete expression. I didn't say matter. And that our relation to this retroflexive process is an ascent into the Word, a going toward the approaching mystery, and a meeting there in a domain of unknowability. Essentially, I mean, this is the casting into being that Heidegger talked about. This is the going to meet the stranger. This is the flight of the alone to the alone that is the driving force of Plotinus's mysticism.
And yet, even though Fulcanelli's basic idea and operational and linguistic alchemy used by sages or hermetic philosophers to transform reality become part of Surrealism's intellectual currency, none of the Surrealists mention Fulcanelli, our mystery of the cathedrals. Once again, he is occluded. Only Max Ernst makes any allusion to Fulcanelli in Beyond Painting, published in 1936. I also recommend that you read that book. Beyond Painting, 1936. However, ladies and gentlemen, by the late 1940s, the work of the movement's founder, André Breton, in both his book Arcana 17 and the catalog for the 1947 Surrealist exhibition, appears to have been heavily influenced by Fulcanelli. Surrealism in 1947, in fact, that's the name of the catalog. The Surrealist exhibition catalog is full of seemingly Fulcanelli-inspired articles such as Liberty of Language by Arpad Mezai. In this article, he explains the occult dialectic through linguistics. Let me say that again. In this article, he explains the occult dialectic through linguistics. If you don't know what dialectic means, you had better look it up. Mezai goes on to announce that language is really an ensemble of symbols, and this conception of language is not far off that which existed in magical civilizations, because the interchangeability of reality and language is the base and the principal key of all hermetic activity. André Breton himself contributed a chart to the catalog for Surrealism in 1947, showing personalities and their associations with the images of the tarot cards, a continuation of the ideas that he had begun in his earlier work, Arcana 17. And ladies and gentlemen, while the tarot is not an obvious connection with Fulcanelli and the mystery of the cathedrals, as we will soon see, Breton's use of the tarot as alchemical metaphors suggests that he had read Fulcanelli even closer than most. because he at least understood some of the underlying message of the book. 10 years later, 1957, Breton wrote The Art of Magic, in which he insists that magic is an innate capacity of all humanity which can never be long suppressed or controlled. And with that admission, Surrealism takes its place alongside the literary works of Joyce, Lovecraft, and Borges as an important 20th century artistic addition to the Western occult tradition.